Chobani is good stuff, huh?
Um, I'm at someone else's house. Like literally, I think like every other time we podcast, like I'm in a different home. So this is
Oh,
what was in the fridge. And I was like, don't mind if I do.
so is this like a client's house that are you house sitting or how does that, what are you doing?
I dog sit on top of taking care of elderly people and babies.
Ah,
So I've been at this house for 2 weeks and I basically do my normal day job, but I like stay here at night. I mean, obviously I let the dog out during the day and stuff. But I love it. It's brought me to some really awesome places. So
yeah,
and
cool.
and my clients are so cool about everything. Or it's like eat, drink, do whatever. Like this house has a wood shop in the basement, so I've been like making stuff
Oh,
and
nice. That
yeah,
sounds like fun.
it is. They have
Can I
a
come
hot
over?
tub. Absolutely. I'm here until Saturday night, Sunday morning. Come on down.
No, speaking of turning off notifications, I just got something. Let me turn off mine.
Well, luckily I didn't hear it because the last time I was getting notifications, I thought it was coming through, but apparently it wasn't. So I
Oh,
didn't hear any dings.
yeah, there's been an update with my iPhone and my MacBook Pro, and they've tried to change all these settings for like focus mode, do not disturb mode, personal mode,
Yeah,
work mode, and I just haven't taken the time to figure it out. What?
it's kind of extra. I've always used do not disturb from 9 p.m. to like 9 a.m. And now it's like, oh, are you sleeping? Are you driving? Are you like talking with
Yeah,
friends? Are you like
too
I'm like
much. It's
stay
too
out of
much.
it. Jeez.
And then you can change the settings for each one of those. Like you can
Yeah, and
change
then
who you
yeah,
can let through. And I'm like, I don't want to think this hard. Come on.
yeah. So now, and I did set it so that certain people could get through. And then I'd be like laying in bed and something would come through. I'm like, who's bothering me right
Yeah.
now? Oh shit, I let them in. My bad.
Right. Yep.
La, 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 la.
Yep.
So, mm,
Oh, my cat's gonna come and want to
oh, hi,
join me
cat.
today. Wanna come up here
What's
and
your
say hi
cat's
real
name?
quick?
I forgot.
Spike. Spike, the one
Spike.
that always wants your attention.
The one that put a nice little loop in my jeans.
Yeah, I'm sure that he did, and I feel so
No,
bad.
he
He does
did.
it to everybody.
No, those
Ugh.
jeans are on their last life. It's okay.
I'm gonna try to
And
ignore him.
hello, literally, I do animals and kids for a living. None of my clothes are safe. All right. So, oh, hi, I'm Carolyn.
I'm Faith
And this is Faith Ford with Open Minds.
and open hearts.
Amen, beach. Okay. So, not last week, last time we recorded right before, well, during Holy Week between Palm Sunday and Easter. And we recorded on Wednesday, which is the day before Maundy, Thursday. And I had wanted to speak on it, but I hadn't experienced it yet. So I just want to do like a really quick recap on Holy Week because it was the first time I celebrated it in this way. And I say celebrate really loosely because there was a lot of sadness, not so much celebration.
Huh.
I mean, obviously at the end we were like, yes, he rose. Woo!
Right. It is kind of a week of mourning, right?
Yeah.
And then I can share a little bit how I did not celebrate it for the first time ever. I mean,
Oh,
not Holy Week,
yes.
but Easter.
Right.
Easter. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I'd love to hear that.
So we have two different
So
experiences.
that's great. I'm here for that. So, first I'll say at the last church we did Palm Sunday. Like, yes, celebrate. Like, literally, I was in a dance last year. Like, when I think of what I was doing, we were dancing and I don't know, waving palms and all that, which is fun, good times. And here is about the same. We had palms and we were waving. It was a good time. But we never did Maundy, Thursday. So that
Hmm.
was new for me. And the foot washing, the Last Supper, I didn't realize that's what it was for. So people kept saying Maundy, Thursday, and I kept thinking they were saying Monday, Thursday.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. I was like, what are you guys talking about? They're like, oh, foot washing. I was like, wait, someone's gonna wash my feet.
Yeah.
Yikes. So I was really kind of nervous about that. But I ended up doing it. And I know that service hit me so hard. And I didn't expect it. Maybe because I was anxious and I was like not sure what to expect with the foot washing thing, because it's like a really vulnerable thing to do. I
Mm,
mean, it wasn't like they were like getting between my toes or anything. It was like the confirmation students, they pour water and then they wipe your feet off with like a washcloth. So
yeah.
it wasn't a big deal.
Did you clean up your feet really well before you went to
Oh
church that night?
my God,
You
yes.
got a pedicure?
I don't know if you can see it. I don't
Nice.
know. Is it not classy that I got sparkles?
Not classy. No, that's very classy.
Well, I mean, like, I'm like, oh, Jesus is dying tonight. Here's my like
Nice sparkly
sparkle toast.
toenails.
I mean, that in itself is stressful to me. I don't enjoy going to get my nails done.
Mm,
Like, I like the finished product, but the process of getting my nails, especially my feet, I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about. And I had to bring a chaperone. My sister-in-law came with me to tell me like what to say and do. So I was like, okay, thanks.
I can't handle
Um,
other people like cleaning my toes. I mean, I know that
okay with
it's,
that.
I'm not okay with it. I can't deal with it. I've only gone a couple times and it was miserable.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable. I don't mind that part. It's just like the language barrier for me is uncomfortable because I want to communicate and I don't know, and I don't want to seem rude, and it's
Yeah.
just so. But I was like, this is for Jesus, glitter toads for Jesus. So I did that, and I was surprised though at once I realized like, hey, this is the Last Supper. This was the night like. He's having dinner. He knows Judas is gonna, out him. He's sitting there washing Judas's feet. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is. But it was like the first time, not the first time, but like I guess the first time I really went deep in and realized like, tried to think about how Jesus was feeling through this whole thing. I think when we talk about these holidays, we're like, yeah, the Last Supper, yeah, that painting, yeah, and Judas did this. But like, what was going through Jesus's head? So I got really emotional. And then I thought about the old church, and I was like, you know what? If he came back today, they would crucify him again. These same people who were dancing with me on Palm Sunday
Mm.
would be the ones on Monday, Thursday, being like, all right, we're over it. Let's get rid of him. And Good Friday, putting him on a cross.
And what do you think it is about Jesus that would have compelled them to want to crucify him then? Like what do you or what is it within those people that would make them behave that way?
The exact reason I left. And it was like, you taught me about Jesus. You taught me like what I read in the Bible from you guys, was that Jesus was all the things that you don't represent. Like, like I mean, we know this, like he walked with the poor and he protected the refugees and he, um, you know, all these social issues. They would call him like radical left. I know it because
Hmm.
I feel like, not to get political about it, but it kind of is. Um, he was radical. And when he didn't fall in line, like they expected him to come and end the Roman war and help them win. And like he was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm here for like the people on the ground. And I think, especially when we look at the MAGA people and Christian Republicans, and I'm sorry, it's not everybody, but the extremists, you look at that and go, okay, um, I just lost my train of thought.
No.
I know. Somebody texted me. I just threw the phone.
Oh.
Um, you look at how they want. They're all about their tax cuts, and they're all about um, their walls, and
Hmm.
they want to keep people out of the country. And it's like,
Hmm.
did you not read where Jesus was fleeing for his life, and Mary was
Yeah.
fleeing for their lives? Like, he's out there doing for the least of us. And when I looked at what the church I was at before, what they were doing, they were not protecting the least of us. I mean, to put it into like one line, They
Mhm.
just didn't. I mean, even with the masks,
Well,
that's
instead, what they do, what I perceive them as doing now, looking from this angle that I'm at, is that they are actually being they are the people in power. They are the, because if you know anybody who wants to be elected to political office has to say that they're a Christian or believe in God at the very least to be able to be like atheists cannot be elected to office. It just does not happen. You can't do it. So, in most instances. So, what I'm saying is that they're the people in power, and yet they're claiming that they are the victims.
oh yeah,
And
which
so they're
is
they're like
ugh,
we're the ones on the margin of society that Jesus cared for. We're the disempowered ones.
yeah,
We're the victims. Instead of look at we're the perpetrators of racism, of um, of not treating people fairly, of perpetuating the cycle of poverty and social injustice. What might we be contributing to this? But they refuse to even consider that. That's so problematic. And so
yeah,
there's no ability to talk with them or to get them to even consider because they're like, oh no, I am the victim. Jesus is protecting me. Jesus is my protector and standing up for me instead of, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
they've really propped themselves up into this stance to where they cannot, it's completely defended. They cannot be have their minds changed in that
Well,
sense.
there's something that they always drilled into us was like, hey, you're going to be persecuted for being a Christian. People are going to
Yeah.
hate you for being
Yes.
Christian. They're going
Yep.
to hate you for following Jesus. So you
Yep.
need to be ready for a fight. You need to be
Yeah.
ready to protect yourself. And that's, and, you think about persecuted Christians in third world countries. Those people are getting their heads cut off. Okay. In America, people are like, ew, you're Christian. Like, that's the worst that's going to happen to you realistically. Come on.
Right. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, that idea of like, I'm the victim, like, it's just that they pound it into you like, oh, you're the victim because people hate Jesus and they're going to hate you because you love him. I mean, I have a online forum for just my town, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I heavily moderate. And I just wanted people from the beach communities, not, it's literally called the name of my town.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a man that came up in the winter and was like posting about like a few towns out, like, hey, we're having these Christian coffee hours. And I removed it and I privately messaged him. I was like, hey, like this is out of our jurisdiction, like for what we're trying to do here. And he came back so hard. It was like, you hate Christians. You just don't like God. Now, this is right when I was like in the middle of being into church and I was like loving God and going to
Right.
church all the time. I was like, ew, what are you
Yeah.
saying?
What?
He was like, Jesus is gonna wipe the dust off his feet for your
uh,
town. And I was like, yeah, I was like, oh, I flipped the script. I was like, excuse you, just so you know, I go to church 2 to 3 times a week. And thankfully, I am not met with these Christians that act like you. I mean, foreshadowing, they were like him. And
yeah.
actually, they knew who he was. A friend of
Did
mine
they
was like,
really?
she was like, oh, really? He said that? I was like, you know this guy? She's like, yeah. I'm like, what the hell? And he didn't apologize. He wasn't like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like,
Oh,
thank God for
yeah.
other brothers and sisters in Christ who lifted me up. Like,
Yeah.
and
Just that
I mean,
judge, that air of judgment, right? Like I remember, like
you
that
don't know
makes
me.
it makes me think of like I was at this church for a while when I was kind of like, what do I do with my kids? I don't know what I believe anymore. What am I gonna do? I brought them to Awana at this church, and it was a very conservative church. And I just remember this guy coming up to me. I was wearing a sweatshirt. Go figure, I like sweatshirts,
What
and he had
doesn't?
and it like had a logo on it. I had no idea what it was. It was like, I don't know, maybe it was like a limited or some sort of like brand logo on it. It was comfortable. That's all I cared about. But he came up to me and he was like, really kind of haughty. what does your shirt even mean? And I was like, I don't know, it's just comfortable. And he's like, you should pay closer attention to what you're advertising on your body. It's just like, I mean, such like condemnation, right? Just like,
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know.
Oh, and that's just the minor
And
of it.
that's mild, right? It's like whatever, but
You know what? I was talking about this yesterday in discussing this podcast that I had to watch. Um, when you think about the subtleties of religious trauma, when I was watching this podcast, so for everybody, and I'll put the link in, I watched the podcast Ladies and Tangents, and they don't only talk about religion, they talk about literally everything. I just happened to stumble upon their Faith 2.0 because they had done a faith podcast like a couple years back.
that was the name of their podcast episode, right? Faith
Their
2.0 or
episode was called,
something.
yeah, Faith
Yeah.
2.0, because they had talked about their faith a few years prior, and they were in a different place now. And one of the girls was a worship leader. Her name is Jerry. She's like, I was a worship leader, and I sang. And she said, I had to sign a paper to be on the worship team. And immediately I was like, oh, I had to do that. When you're a leader in this place, in any capacity. Now, I worked with babies, so literally birth to 3. Mm-hmm. But I remember going through this packet and reading it. And I went to the deacon who I was friends with, and I said, you and I both know I can't sign this paper. Number one, it says you can't do drugs. You guys both know that I smoke weed. It also says like you can't have homosexual relationships or whatever. You can't drink alcohol. You can't. I mean, it wasn't just that. Like, and this isn't just at church. This is obviously not doing drugs at church, but
right.
I mean, on the regular. No, just kidding. But I mean,
that's the only way you could go back now, right?
Literally. So in the end, I was like, ugh. Anyway, but they wanted you to represent them and call it Christ. But if you're a leader in that church, so I remember saying to her, like, I don't think I should sign this. And she's like, well, you're just a baby, so it doesn't matter. And I was like, okay. She's like, it's more for like, the older kid leaders. And if you're on the worship team, you have to represent a certain type of way. And now, other than not feeling comfortable signing that, which I ended up doing because I just wanted to be with the kids, that's a little thing that you wouldn't go, oh, that's religious abuse or trauma. Mm-hmm. Like, because it seems so minute, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, what are you wearing on your shirt? You should just, pay attention to that. It just seems, maybe in that moment you can go, oh, well, maybe that guy's right. Like, I should know, because what if this is, but that kind of hyper vigilant, like, what are you doing at all times, no matter where you are, because Jesus can see you, is what so much anxiety and fear is born from, which they obviously thrive on, and then sit there and say, we don't live in a spirit of fear. The longer I'm away, and the more stories I hear from other people, I'm like, oh, you don't think about it until it's like, I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't right,
Yeah, it's and I also feel like that kind of you're saying hypervigilance, what it does also is just always making you go, is this right or is this wrong? How do I do the right thing? And you're just, then all of a sudden you're self-policing yourself, and and that's causing anxiety for yourself. Is this the right thing? Is this the wrong thing? Instead of things just being things, like,
and you're also not the only one policing yourself, because other people are policing you too.
And always wondering what they're thinking about you, instead of going, oh, how do I feel about this? I don't know.
Yeah. I know it's a lot. And I know this episode touched on some really heavy stuff. Like, some of it was like, physical, like, Catholic school where people would get whacked on the hand. And I have a friend
Mm-hmm.
who went to Catholic school, and she's the same age as like my mom, or a little younger than my mom. And she's like, yeah, the nuns would, they whacked us, you know. I, I mean, even if we look at like what's happening today with the abortion leak from the Supreme Court, that they're probably going to overturn Roe versus Wade. It makes you think, like, how much power do the Christians have? Because this is a Christian issue. We both know that, like, realistically.
Mm-hmm.
It's predominantly a Christian issue. If they can overturn Roe versus Wade, then that puts the fear that, okay, they can also overturn gay marriage and like the things that we've worked so hard for equality.
Yeah.
And when I look at that and I go, oh, and when other people look at that, especially unchurched people, and they go, oh, this is what Christianity is,
Well, yeah,
telling
that's
people
where
what
we
to do.
have to like clarify, about it being a Christian issue. It's a conservative evangelical Christian issue
Right.
because there are progressive Christians who are pro-choice, who are,
Well, yeah.
stand against in opposition on every single one of those issues. So, but yeah,
Yeah, but those Christians aren't winning.
no.
That's the problem, is like there's enough evangelical extremists that have now, I mean, when Trump was in office, he has, sorry,
Raised your
when
hand.
Trump was, I didn't mean to, when Trump was in office, he was able to get 3 justices in, which means that's a third of our governing body for the entire nation. That doesn't seem right. That shouldn't seem right to people. Like, it just, especially since the majority of people, when you go by popular vote, actually err on the side of, let people make their own choices and do what they need to do, which is confusing because Republicans are all about not having the government up in your grill.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally up in women's uteruses right now. The
Yeah, I
fuck?
know. I know it does. It's not consistent logically, is it?
Well, none of it
No,
makes sense, does it?
no.
So,
Yeah,
sorry.
I
Um,
know.
I was talking about Holy Week. So, oh, you asked me why I thought they would be the ones to crucify him, because Jesus, like, in my eyes, like, without saying like he was a Democrat or like a liberal, whatever, he fought for those issues. So I did cry pretty hard that day because I was like, oh, like, and the thing is like they don't even realize they'd be the one to crucify him. So Good Friday happened. The difference this time was, so when I did Good Friday at the old place, it was again very celebratory. Um, and Good Friday was not a good day. Um, so when I got to the sanctuary that night, the pastors there were not in their robes. They were not. They were very solemn. It was a different setup. All of the decorations were gone. There was a black um, uh,
Veil or
fabric,
cloth.
yeah,
Yeah.
over the cross. They were in like funeral clothes, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like real. It was like a real funeral. Like, they
Mhm.
read the story, they would snuff out the candles. There was a row of candles on the altar, and I thought every time they would go up and snuff out a candle, I was just like, it just like hit so hard, like, just, I don't know. So that was pretty sad. And then that time in between Friday and Sunday, I ingested a lot of videos and readings, and um, I really dived deeper into, you know, uh, the story. Even though you know the story, it's hard to explain. Like, you look at it with new eyes,
Mhm.
and it's a whole different experience. So Sunday was obviously joyful, pink colors, flowers everywhere, singing, like, yay. But
Mhm.
that was one hell of an emotional week, and
Mhm.
not one that I expected to really have. But it was my first Easter also in a new place. And I said to the pastor recently, like, my anniversaries of the old church are almost over. And now I'm going to start having anniversaries with this church. Like, That was my last holiday. Easter was my last holiday. And I left around August.
Hmm.
So it's almost like I'm almost cleaning house. Like I'm almost at the point where, yeah, it'll come up 2, 3 years ago, this happened, but last year, here's where you were.
Yeah.
And,
That's a lot
so
of change in less than a year. That's a lot of change.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I realized that week too, because it's not just like, oh, one day, oh, Christmas. And obviously Christmas was important, but again, we were separated for Christmas just because of the quarantine. Like we
Hmm.
did Christmas Eve, but it wasn't the same. But like I learned over the years, Easter's more important than Christmas and why. And but yeah, it's I think because it was a whole week, it was really the most thought I put into this holiday, this religion, this what we're doing, why we're doing it, which
Hmm.
surprised me for myself, I guess.
Hmm.
And then there's you,
Yeah.
who, how'd that go?
Well, non-eventful. I mean, I didn't miss it. That was the thing. I didn't miss it. I didn't
Really?
I didn't go to church. Um, my kids didn't go to church. None of us did. We just stayed here and had a family day. Did none of the Holy Week stuff. I mean, I work for a church, so I mean, I was seeing some of it, but I wasn't participating in it. Um, and so I don't know. I mean, the fact that I didn't miss it, it's and I'm kind of heading in the direction where I'm thinking I might just not be going for quite a while because you were mentioning how it took you through this big emotional thing through Holy Week. And I think I'm done with the emotion of killing somebody, essentially feeling like I've been responsible for the death of somebody. That's been drilled in my head since I was born about how I'm responsible for Jesus's death. He had to die for me because I'm sinful, because I'm bad, because I'm evil, and there's nothing in me that's redeemable, but God, by His grace, had mercy on me, right? So that was drilled in, and I can't undo myself from that negative way of looking at the crucifixion. And so, yes, I could go to a more progressive church like what you're doing and participate in and look at it through different eyes. I just don't know if it's possible for me to still be involved in that celebration and within that idea frame with those stories and not be triggered into that same feeling like I'm being told to hate myself, to distrust myself, to always reach out to somebody else to save me instead of looking to myself to empower myself for things. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm thinking it might be healthier for me mentally to just not be there because I take everything so, I mean, I 150% was a believer. I didn't take it lightly. It wasn't like I could just go and listen and take the things I wanted to that worked for me and then let it go during the week. Like I took it all seriously as one could take. And so that's kind of what I do. And I just don't know if I can just, you know, only take, I don't know. So that's where I'm at. I'm just thinking that it might be healthier for me to continue to avoid for a while.
Do you think that you are no longer identifying as a Christian?
Probably. I mean, yeah, I think so. I think I'm choosing not to be involved in that. I mean, I think realistically, part of me is always going to be a Christian because I don't know that I can unlink myself from that. I mean, I grew
From the
up
idea
in
of
church.
Jesus? Well, yeah, but you also left the church, and there's a lot of people that do leave the church.
Hmm.
Um, because Christianity obviously is linked to Christ. So you can still have faith, you can still believe in God,
Hmm.
and maybe Jesus can just be a symbol of. I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, it's hard for you to reassign a symbol to Jesus, but
Hmm.
if you can't, um, maybe you. might not end up being a Christian in the end. I mean, but that doesn't mean you won't have faith. It
Right.
doesn't mean that you won't have your connection to God and the higher power. It just means you're not sure about the whole Jesus dying for you situation, which was the definition of being a Christian, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it's just I'm just sitting in, being able to handle sitting in places without all the answers too. Um, and
Yeah.
and I'm still exploring. I'm just giving myself permission to explore different ideas, ways of being than I ever was allowed myself to do. I mean, I even when I wasn't attending church, like in my 20s, I still felt like the Christian worldview was the only respectable worldview to one, the only one with truth. So like I limited myself to the books, books, which books I could read, Christian books or Christian ideas, or I couldn't go too far out of the box, right?
Well, that was the
So,
policing thing too, because they'll tell you don't consume media, books,
mm,
TV, anything that could steer you away. So they
mhm.
don't want you to know about other things either.
It's a closed system
Mm.
of belief, which just perpetuates these borders and these boundaries to where you are stuck there and unable to entertain any other thoughts and ideas and whatever. And it's limiting, and I think it's harmful. And I don't know. I'm just breaking out.
Good for
I'm
you.
done.
Break
So.
free.
And that's
Um,
a funny thing because, and I'm sorry, and then I'll let you
no,
talk.
go ahead.
That was, I've always felt like I was uh, trapped in prison. I've always felt that way. Like if I was honest with myself. And there was a time when I was doing a study by Beth Moore, who is a really, famous, very popular Bible study writer in the evangelical world. And she's wonderful. I mean, I still don't have anything, I still love her, but she wrote a book or a study called Breaking Free. And I just remember going like, I know I need to break free of something, but this isn't quite hitting it. But the idea of breaking free, I'm like, yes, I need to. But didn't quite get to the root of it until later.
So did you just have the sense that you wanted to break free, or did you feel like, oh, I need to break free from religion? Were you just
Didn't
like
never would have
you
said that
couldn't?
at that time.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah,
couldn't
never would have
pinpoint
said
what it
no.
was.
No, I just knew that there was something like this freedom in Christ that they were talking about. This freedom, like I was like, I don't feel free.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's the deal here? What am I not praying hard enough? Am I not studying or reading my Bible, dutiful enough? Like, am I not? What am I not? Am I not pure enough? Like my thoughts aren't
No,
controlled
you're
enough?
not.
Like what am I not getting? So I was like,
All of
I'm
it.
missing this freedom. I'm not free. What is it? I need to do more. I need to do more. That's where I was at. And it's just, ugh.
I remember saying to my old pastor, I was like talking about the Jehovah Witness woman that I take care of. And she's like, well, they're not free. We're free. I remember her saying that. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, they have to do acts, they have to hit quotas. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, every other week you guys are telling me I have to do this, that, and the other thing.
And that's even
So
more insidious if you say, oh no, we're free in Christ, but yet you got all these like checklist things you feel like you have to do in order to be free.
yeah,
Like that, no, you're telling me that I'm free, but you're putting all these restrictions on me, so I'm not free.
yeah, you guys need a dictionary,
It's a
okay?
mind fuck.
Gee, the whole thing is a mind fuck. Yes, it is. Use your voice, Faith. I love that.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
poor little Faith.
No,
You know,
don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say poor little Faith. I hate that.
no,
I feel like I always
I'm
talk to.
sorry.
No, no, I always feel like the way I talk about myself and about my experiences makes people feel that way towards me. And I'm not trying to take a victim role. I'm trying to get out of that.
No,
Okay, all right, all
no,
right, okay.
no. Whoa,
So,
no. Boundary set, Queen. Boundary set. No, it's just that you're so sweet. And to see you like struggle with these things, it's just like, it's not like, oh, poor little bit. It's like, oh, please.
yeah,
Like, we don't
Yeah.
want that for you.
Yeah.
The struggle is important, but also, so here's kind of a weird story. The other day I was talking to my Jehovah Witness lady, and she goes, "Oh, I got in trouble." Now the Kingdom Hall has now resumed. So they just
Okay.
resumed a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh. To in-person stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she and her sister lives in the building with her. They're in an assisted living. And she goes, "I got in trouble." I go, "Girl, it's week 2. What the heck? Is it you've been hanging out with me too much?" She goes, well, Betsy told on me. And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, she told the brothers that I watched an inappropriate movie." And
Are
I
you
was like,
serious?
one that I put on for her for sure. You know what it
Uh,
was? Mary Poppins.
you gotta be kidding me. Seriously?
My mind
The
was
new one or the old one?
whichever, both,
It doesn't
because
really matter, but
she flies, because she levitates, and she magically
uh,
does things with magic. I said,
well,
"Girl, I've during Christmas, I come in here and see you watching Christmas movies all the time. And you said that wasn't a big deal," which I was surprised that she was even doing that. And she was like, "Yeah, I can't do that anymore." She's like, I had to be punished. I was like, "Punished?"
how do they
She goes,
punish?
"That was my question." I was literally blown away. She goes, "Well, no, they have to do that. That's important." I go, how are you punished?" She goes, "Well, I was gonna be a speaker that week, and they wouldn't let me speak that week. That my punishment was that I couldn't participate that week." And I was like, "Ew, I hate that." And she's like, "No, no, no, it's important." I was like, "Nope, I hate that. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
hate that." I'm like, "It was a movie," and she was like, "Yeah, but we have to be careful what we consume." And I was just like flooded back with like, Harry Potter's the devil.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I was like, "Oh my god."
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Mary Poppins.
Speaking of that, I mean, I remember I'm having issues with anxiety for a lot of my life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
really being convinced that that was um, demons, something satanic kind of taking over because I'd been scared so much about that type of stuff. And that's not cool.
That was one of my questions literally on here. This is one of my questions for you personally.
Mm,
Faith, as someone who grew up in church, do you feel the fear of God? Did you feel the fear of God at a young age? What fears were installed at your churches? And did you feel anxious? And do you feel anxious as an adult because of it?
yeah.
D, all of the above,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the demon thing was the biggest thing in relation to my anxiety. When I was younger, in particular, I didn't really know what was happening. Like you feel that way, and you're like, what is going on? Like, why am I
Mm,
feeling like this? And not having any kind of um, just having no clue. And the only thing I knew was my religion, and I just assumed that Satan was after me or some demons were plaguing
mm-hmm,
me, and so I needed to pray more. I needed to, ask God to protect me. And yet, all my prayers for protection never amounted to them going to the anxiety going away. So it was like, well, why isn't God protecting me? It's really, really kind of a messed up place to be.
did you ask
Um,
your parents or your leaders at the time, like, "Hey, I need help with this," or no?
no, I don't think I did. No, I mean, I think I explained it a little bit to my mom about what was going on. I'm not sure that she really understood what was going on either.
Mm,
Um, so it was just kind of like she would listen and everything, but yeah, no, just not a real clear connection to figuring out what was going on there until I was in my
mm,
20s and got some medication, which then, when you go on some medication, that was a and go to therapy, that brings up a whole other thing, like God should be sufficient for you. You shouldn't have to go to therapy. I definitely had that message in my head, and I can't remember ever explicitly hearing it from anybody, but I certainly felt horrible, like horrible going to therapy, and
I'm surprised your
horrible.
parents brought you.
No, they didn't. I went on my own. It
Oh,
was
you
when
were
I was in
older.
my 20s. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, oh, sorry.
Yeah. And yeah, just horrible taking it. It like almost made me feel worse to take it and to get help
Mm,
because, but I didn't really have a choice because it was like, okay, what else do I do? I don't know what else to do. Um, so yeah, I mean,
wow. So that episode, that Ladies and Tangents, was about these things. It was about religious trauma, and they were reading stories, and they were
mhm,
talking about anxiety. They even mentioned the being afraid of demons and things like that. It was one of the kids' person's stories was about that.
mhm,
So it made me think of one of the things. Hold on, I have to clear my throat. One of the things that happened to me when I was at my aunt's church at
uh-huh,
like 15, 16. So because I was just on the cusp of being out of Sunday school. They had like a youth room, but I remember sitting there with my cousin. She was a year younger than me, and they put on a video. Um, and it was about this shooter. And of course, back then, people weren't really shooting each other, not like today, uh, where everyone's
just
shooting everyone.
just old hat now.
Isn't that sick? I know. So it was about this shooter. He walks up to this park, and there's all these families playing, having picnics, like birthdays, and bang, 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 bang. He shoots all these people. Sunday
Yeah.
school for teenagers. Just keep this in mind. Thanks. And oddly enough, this is not what made me leave. But um, so what happens is, and then the shooter kills himself. Boom, dead. I think he either kills himself or the police come and they shoot him. So they all go up to like the in between. I don't know, purgatory. We didn't use that. They didn't believe in that, but it was like, it was really just trying to prove a point. So they get to this
Mhm.
angel, and the angel's like, okay, now let's go one by one. Are you going to go to heaven or hell? Let's look at your life. Keep in mind, a lot of these people were kids that were shot and killed
Yeah.
in this scenario.
Mhm.
So the first girl comes up and she's like, I studied my Bible and I went to church and I love Jesus. And they're like, oh, well, you're good. Like, you're in. And she's like, well, what about my sister, my little sister? And they're like, well, she didn't do that like you did. And she's like, yeah, but she's little. And she was like 9. The girl was 16 and then her sister was like 9 or something. And she's like, but she's just a kid. And they're like, well, you tried to prophesy to her. Like, you tried to get her to
Witness
come
to
with
her.
you.
Yeah.
And she had the opportunity and she chose not to. So boom, she goes to hell, right? Then this boy comes up and he had been playing basketball with his friends.
Now wait, hold on just a second. This is the one
Like,
that this is at the church that you went to when you were 15 at your
yeah, when
aunt's
I was a
church.
kid. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So a boy comes up and he's like, I never did anything bad to anybody. I was never mean to anybody. And the angel's like, yeah, but don't you remember your friend telling you, like, coming up to you with the Bible and trying to read to you? And you were like, no, I want to go play basketball. Well, you had the opportunity. Hell, right? And then it's going heaven, hell, whatever to these people. And this one really struck me because my mom was atheist growing up, but she always gave us, like I said, she always gave us the option to pursue whatever we wanted
Mhm.
religiously. So this man comes up and he's like, I was a UN ambassador, a peace treaty maker. Like, I stopped wars. No, I didn't go to church. I didn't really believe in that. But his life was like your stereotypical good person, gave to charity, literally stopped wars, all this stuff. And they're like, well, being good is not what gets you in. Accepting Jesus is what gets you in. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to go to hell. And I was like, oh, that one hit. I mean, the kids, obviously, that was disturbing, but I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This guy, like, and then it gets to the killer, which is my favorite part. The
No.
killer gets up there. Oh, yeah, you know where this is going. And he goes, I know I did this, but I want Jesus to forgive me. And I'm sorry that I did this. And I had a really bad life. And they're like, oh, you want to accept Jesus into your heart? And he's like, yeah, I really do. And they're like, okay, you're forgiven. And I was like, what the actual fuck did I just watch in a room full of kids? I looked at my cousin. I was like, what the fuck is this? And she goes, I don't know. This is the stuff they show here. Like
She's like, whatever.
she's like, it is what it is. Like she wasn't buying into it, but like you get kids that are going to buy into it, you know, at that point.
That was me.
No, I mean,
I know.
But I mean, I know, I get it. But I didn't go to Sunday school after that. I just stayed in the pews.
Yeah.
And then after that is when I heard the top, like homeschooling your children sermon. And I was like, okay, this paired with the murdering video, like I gotta go.
I love it. You're a critical thinker. That's good.
Well, no, it was because I think the biggest part is because I was raised in a school system where we were, even though it was like predominantly white, like we had like 2 Black families and like 2 Indian families, like we celebrated diversity. It was safe to be gay in my school. It was safe to be different. I didn't never ever experienced or heard of anybody experiencing, and I was friends with those people that were of color. They never really experienced anything that really singled them out. So when I'm visiting my aunt's house, which is in the country about 45 minutes away, they have a whole different culture. So it makes more sense to them probably, but to me, I'm going, yeah. My best friend at home is gay as the day is long. Like, so I always had that conflict.
You had that, yeah, because luckily you had life experience that was broad and vast enough to be able to flag the things that didn't line up that you were hearing.
I was lucky. Yeah, I was lucky in that way. And I also at that time knew that I was at least bisexual. Like I knew, like my first relationship ever was with a girl. So, but I loved my family and I wanted to be part of my family. And every time I say that to somebody, I feel stupid saying it, like, I want to be part of my family. Like you're supposed to be part of your family just by being family. But like, and obviously I'm estranged from that group, but I was just trying to be open-minded even for them. And it's the same thing that happened at the church that I was at a few years ago. It's like, I didn't agree with everything you were saying, but I was just trying to see where you were coming from. But ultimately where you're coming from is like total garbage. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Can't participate, and that's good. But well, yeah, other like when on that episode you sent to me to listen to, they were talking about different traumatic church experiences, and I feel like sometimes listening to those types of episodes, like I didn't really have anything really bad, but if I really start to, now that we're talking about it, I'm like, I mean, because I remember in youth group at church on, I assume it was around Easter. We didn't do Holy Week. It was, or maybe it didn't even have to be around Easter time. But the youth pastor would get up there and go into gruesome detail about the ways that Jesus suffered on the cross.
Yeah, I went through that too.
Like what exactly happened to the human body when it's pierced with nails or been hanging on a cross. And then of course, after you've been like just, stricken with grief and these horrible details that somebody else had to endure for your failures, right? Then of course they have an altar call at the end, and anybody who buys into that is going to be like, yeah, of course, I want to accept that. Or accept Jesus's sacrifice. I don't want it to be for nothing and blah blah blah. Anyways, but that's emotional manipulation. That is not.
Absolutely. I went to a women's retreat where that was read by the pastor, and she's like breaking down and she's sobbing, like, because to her that is like her best friend, her father, her brother, and then in the back of the room, one of the other women had a piece of metal and a sledgehammer, and they would bang it.
Ugh, jeez.
Bang it. So we're sitting there and we're supposed to close our eyes as we're being read so that we can picture blood spilling out of him and all this. And all of a sudden, boom, boom. And it just jolts you. And I think about that, and it was scary. It was scary to hear it, and it was uncomfortable. I don't like horror things. I don't like gruesome things.
Yeah, me either.
But it's funny, like I cried harder on Monday, Thursday than I did that day that they were banging in the nails, because it was more like surfacey scare stuff. But like instead, because it's on the outside, it's like, look what they did, and they ripped him to shreds. But really, the turmoil is in your mind. I mean, not to say that that wasn't horrible, and obviously it was, but like, if you're not getting to the root of the problem, which is what was going on in Jesus's head, why he was doing what he was doing, why he was accepting this execution, there's so many, there's a lot there.
It's just, I mean, I think, and one of the key turning points, I've probably already said this before, for me about thinking differently about my faith came in this just realization that love does not have any hint of guilt or shame or duty or obligation. And that is just what I experienced. I experienced a lot of love. It was said to be love, but all it was guilt. All it was
just control.
Yeah, it was control.
It was an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Because if your husband was like this, like, I love you, but you better do everything I tell you to do, or I'm going to take that love away. All of your girlfriends would be like, bitch, get out of there. Right? So,
yeah.
Love, sex, and food should not be painful. I watch a lot of people eating hot wings, and I'm like, food shouldn't hurt. Food should not hurt your face. Like people eating like the hottest chip in the world.
What's that show? The Hot Wings show. I
Hot
forget
Ones.
Hot Ones. Yeah.
Hot Ones. I was showing that to a few people the other day, and I was like, you shouldn't be like nearly throwing up to eat a hot wing. Like, why are you doing that? And maybe, and some people like that, good for you. And when it comes to sex, like if you want to beat the shit out of your partner, as long as it's consensual, you go ahead. For me, and if you want your religion to make you feel like a fucking peon, that's on you and your own trauma. For me, sex, food, and God should be warm, encompassing, supportive.
And
shouldn't hurt.
I hear this, the voice in my head is telling me, you're just listening to what you want to hear. You're just hearing what you want to hear. You just want to feel all good and not deal with the truth. And I still hear that voice in my head, and it's like,
I do too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No.
We were having a meeting the other night for one of our committees, and somebody from the local newspaper wanted to interview our church and for Pride Month. And I'm in the group, basically the Pride group, the Open and Affirming Reconciling Committee. And I was like, oh, I'd be willing to give a statement, like put my name down. And because I'm so open here and I feel so free to say what I want to say, and having the podcast and I say what I want to say, like I thought nothing of it. I'm like, yeah, but then when I got off the phone later, I was like, ooh, wait a minute. My name in the paper talking about, not to say that I'm embarrassed in my church. I love my church. I support and I will protect my church at all costs. However, I was saying this to the pastor too later, like yesterday. I was like, ooh, I thought about this. And she's like, ooh, so did I. Maybe not the best idea. And I was like, yeah, because not that I care what they think, but I also don't want to give them that validation. Like if I go there and say I left a church, I would never name the church I left, but I left this church because I wasn't able to learn what I needed to learn. And immediately in my head, it goes, you're picking and choosing. You're going to a
Yeah,
place where they're like-minded. Don't just go somewhere where they're like-minded,
right.
because church should be challenging and this and that. And I'm thinking, it fucking has been for years. That
Hmm.
and I said to them, even back when I was there, I go, I'm sorry. Have you not seen me sit with you for these 3.5 years while grossly disagreeing with the things that you're okay with? I go, would you come sit in a church of my choice? And they were like, no. I was like, so who's open-minded and who's not? Don't tell me that I haven't been open-minded here, because I have. But my thought is, like, if they see my name in the paper, even if it's the most innocent comment in the world, I
Hmm.
feel like it will invalidate, um I will become a martyr. Like, see, Carolyn went there because they told her what she wanted to hear, and they cherry pick and this and that. And I'm like, I don't want
Yeah.
to give them that.
Well, but also, Carolyn, like I at some point you got to let go of what they're going to think and what they're going to I mean
I know.
because they are always because you're doing something different than what they had said. They've already condemned you. Like
I know.
it doesn't matter what you do. And I mean, because and I only can see that because I deal with that. It's like, I mean, for like years after leaving my church, I was like, I could still play back. I knew exactly what every person would be
Yes.
thinking about me
Yes.
and the judgment of
Oh.
what they thought I would had done and why I had left.
Mm,
And the thing is that people have made up their minds and there's no way to educate
yeah.
every single person about the reality and the way that you have come to peace with it for yourself. Like you just have to be good enough for
Yeah.
that. I'm speaking to my for myself here too because you
No, yeah,
know,
I love
I don't
it.
know.
No, that's true. I guess though, and the pastor said, like, I would have never asked you 7 months ago. And I was like, 7 months ago, I would never had offered. But I've been so free here for, I mean, I'm only 3 months away from my 1 year anniversary with them. So I'm, I've done a lot of work in these 8, 9 months. So it was kind of refreshing to know that I was like, yeah, I'll speak. And even though I retracted that, went a few steps back, and I was like, well, maybe I'm not ready for that. The
Mhm.
fact that my knee-jerk reaction was to be like, yeah, I'll speak, really made me feel better, knowing, like, okay, even though they won't say anything to me or whatever, I don't want to give them fuel. Like, I don't want to be that martyr where they can be like, see, if you leave our church, this, like, I don't know. I just don't want to be used as an example, because I just remember
Mhm.
being there. And when I was asking, like, do you let gay people come here? Like, yeah, we had this really nice gay couple. We were friends with them. We poured our love into them for a year. And they just left. But I can't tell you how many times they talked about that gay couple, those men. And when I finally found those men and I spoke to those men on the phone, which infuriated the deacon and ultimately ended our friendship. When I found those men, she's like, you're just looking for things to, like, be mad about our church and find an ex club. And I was like, no, I was looking for gay men that still love Jesus after being told they're not worthy.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't tell you how many times I used those boys as an example. And I thought, I don't want to be that
You
example,
don't want to be
because
the example. Yep.
they're only going to tell half the story,
Yep.
and because people go, oh yeah, I remember Carolyn. Oh yeah, she did this, that, and this. Well, she changed. She
This is
went to
what
the dark
happens.
side. Yep. See, I don't want to be that.
I
And
know.
I know it's out of my hands, but some of it's in my hands. So I'm not ready to do that for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be more removed,
Right.
where, in a couple years, maybe I'll be like, okay, I don't know,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
2 months. I'll be like, all right, fuck it, let's do this. But right now, I was like, I'm trying really careful to be, in my freedom. I'm also trying really careful to be smart and to
Mhm.
protect my mental health, because I'm not out of it yet.
Yeah.
Like, every time I think I'm, like, really strong, I'm like, okay, I got this, every month, like, give it like a week and I'll be like, I can't do this,
No. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm out, and then, like, I just totally break down. So
I
um
know. The grief kind of comes and goes, doesn't it?
I've never experienced anything like this, ever.
Yeah.
I've never had grief like this. Oh shit.
What'd you do? Where'd you
My
go?
my iPad's at 10%.
Oh no, and you're not plugged in?
I'm plugged in with my headphones.
Oh no.
Oh no. Hold on. Hold please. I might
What are we gonna do about this?
uh um all right, time out. Hold.
All
Be
right.
my brain. Be my brain and
All
remember
right.
where we are. Okay? Hold.
Okay. All right. That's a tricky thing about iPhone. I mean, like Apple products having the lightning cord be both for your ear pods and for charging.
That's not tricky. That's intentional. Those bitches did that on purpose. They knew exactly what they were doing when they rolled out the wireless ear pods. And I was like, wait a minute, where's the jack? And they're like, haha, psych.
We have a solution for you. Oh, that's what religion does too. They create a problem and then they say, hey, here's my solution for you.
They're like, they stab you and they're like, wait, oh gosh, let us stitch you up.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that. That's a familiar tactic. Anyway.
So for anyone listening, if my mic or my sound is different, it's because I had to ditch my mic. So lo siento.
It's all right, we can still hear you.
Brains. You're my brains. Where were we?
Yeah, we're talking, I don't remember now either.
Oh my gosh, you're in charge of my brains. Okay.
But I can take us somewhere because there was something else that the podcast episode you sent me kind of triggered for me and brought up. And that was all of my involvement with being a Sunday school teacher over the years. I've taught a lot of kids Sunday school. And from the very first time I did, I remember preparing the content each week and always feeling like, I don't really like the way they presented that there. I'm going to change it a little bit. These are young kids. Let's really bring up the, God's love, not necessarily like in the story of Noah that God punished the rest of the world and killed them all. Okay, so let's talk about how he saved. And I would have this cognitive dissonance about, well, you're diluting the word of God, Faith, by not telling the whole story. And I'm like, yeah, but they're kids. I'm just going to dilute
it for now. At least you
did that. And
so you did that.
But here's the progression for me. Like it started with that, and that was pre-kids, before I had my own kids, okay? So I was already kind of censoring and like, how do I tiptoe around these? And then I had kids, and then I was teaching my kids Sunday school classes, and I was like, I can't teach my kids these stories. I can't tell my kid that their heart is sinful and do the whole, the color thing, like white is for pure, green is for the growth, black is for sin. Have you ever heard like this?
No.
This color, like red is for the blood of Jesus. Anyways, like those kinds of lessons, like I couldn't do it. And so I would not, and this is sad on my part, but I could not do it. And so I just continued to send my kids, but I stopped volunteering. Or I would just be in there as a helper. Like I couldn't do it. And then I had the job where I was actually in charge of Christian education. And so I was teaching them again, teaching the lessons again. And I just remember finding myself going, I'm going to speak on broad issues. Let's talk about love. What is love? Okay. Let's talk about, like I would see the lesson plans for some of the curriculum and see it be a story in the Bible. And I'm like, how long am I going to sit here and try to rewrite these fucking stories in a way that's going to be healthy for kids? They're not healthy for kids. Kids should not be hearing that there's a God who loves them, but also destroy the entire humanity if they don't obey him. I'm sorry, but that's just not okay. And
no, yeah, right on.
I just found I'm like, I can't even do this anymore. I can't in good conscience, here I felt a little bit in charge with that. At least I was like, I'm taking charge of the situation and I'm preparing the lessons now that my kids are going to hear.
Is that why you signed up to do that? Because that was going to be my
Hmm.
question. It's like you left teaching and then became in charge of all the
Well,
teachers.
I also left for a more progressive church, right? So I felt it was
Oh,
a different environment. It was not no longer the very conservative evangelical church. It was a more progressive church.
so wait. So you had your kids in the old church, in
Yep.
the evangelical church, and
Hmm.
that's where you were teaching. Did you
Hmm.
stop teaching when you left that church, or did you stop teaching before you left that church?
Before I left that church, and I was
So,
still
and
sending my kids.
you had the kids keep going, and then when you went to the next church, then you became in charge of Christian ed.
Yeah, there was sort of a transition other
Okay.
evangelical church in there that I went to as I was just trying to figure out what I was doing. But then I went to the more progressive church, and they needed, because I really loved the person who was in charge of the Christian education there. But she left, and when she left, I was like, I know I can do this, and I know I can do a good job. So I did it. And I didn't want to have to move my kids again either, you know?
Is that why you kept them in Sunday school? Because they wanted to be, did they want to be in there with their friends? And
Not particularly. I mean,
no, you were just like,
they didn't hate it, but I felt because I grew up in church, I didn't know how else do I instill morals and values into my kids. I felt like that was
mm,
like I felt like that was just a necessary thing. I had this vision when
yeah.
I had kids that I was going to be at the church, the evangelical church, and I mean I was part of that family of church people, right? And I envisioned in my head the elders knowing my kids as they were growing up and baptizing my kids. And I had great respect for these people. And
Hmm.
that was my vision. And that came crumbling down. And I was just kind of scrambling, like,
Yeah.
but still feeling like I needed to have my kids in there somewhere. So that was how I justified it. But then it just got to the point where I, I mean, among so many other things, it was just like, how many more times, how can I rewrite these anymore to have them be, to feel like I'm okay with giving this message to my kids anyway. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because in that same episode, the girls talk about um, sexual identity and gender fluidity in schools, and
Hmm.
how kids shouldn't be talking about sex or this or that. But they also want to bring the Bible back to school, and the Bible has incest, rape, slavery, murder. So
Hmm.
it, I had a note about it, but the girls talk about how people don't want to talk about gender or sexual orientation in schools, but they are okay with teaching children that they in church that they will burn in hell, and so will their loved ones if they don't believe the same way. Also, they don't teach racism, to like what racism is to their kids. But even if it's
Hmm.
not in school, even if the Bible's not in school, you're those same parents who are yelling about you can't have transgenders in school or mess with the bathrooms are then on
Hmm.
Sunday bringing their kids to school, Sunday school, and like being told like your whole family's going to burn in hell if they don't believe, and putting that
Right.
pressure on a child to. I mean, I don't think our classes were doing that. I only made it to like I did birth to three for a while, and then I did what was called the rainbows. That was like 3 to 4.
Hmm.
But ours wasn't as like intense that I know of. Probably as they got older, they would have more intense things. But
Hmm.
but there are churches where like they're teaching them young, like, hey, it's your responsibility to preach to these people. Just like that video, like, oh well, I
Hmm.
tried to preach to my friend, but he just wanted to play basketball. What a loser. Now he's going to hell. Like,
Yeah, I know.
that's that's so messed up.
It is really messed up. And my cat is clawing at me again.
Spike, pull
Spike.
together. One thing I know you also get fired up about, which I like when you get fired up because you have a lot to say. We were talking over lunch about churches transitioning from old school to like new school. So the last
Hmm.
church that you were in, you told me that they started out very traditional, hymns and reverence, and then they brought in somebody to kind of help modernize them a little bit. And then you had a service in the morning that was traditional, and then a service in the afternoon that was more contemporary with the band and the your favorite, the fog machine. Uh,
We,
um,
we actually didn't have a fog machine, but there are plenty of lights and, all the sparkly,
when I
stuff.
visited that church, it had a
Oh,
fog
did
machine.
it?
Yeah, I wasn't
That
kidding about
wasn't
that.
there when
That
when
was
I was
last
there.
year.
Oh
I went
man.
for one of
Woo.
their multi-congregational concerts, and it started
Yeah.
with fog, and I was like, that's a bit much. But
Hey.
um the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to talk about how church attendance has changed since COVID.
Mhm.
Because I'm looking at my church, which is very traditional, uh, ritual wise. We sing
Uh-huh.
hymns, and we say the Our Father, and we pass the peace, and which is all well and good. But there's a lot of people that didn't come back after the pandemic.
Mhm.
And one of the things my I've tried to do and tried to push big is on the music. I'm like, you guys need modern music. And you
Okay.
and I talked about this, and you were like, hard no. But
Oh, I think it's yeah. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying, and then I'll comment.
it's okay. I have notes in here that just say, I wanted to know why. Ask Faith about her church transitioning from old school to new school and how that made her feel. Why that was upsetting, but how it was also received. Because you said
Yeah.
eventually the church had more attendance to the contemporary uh,
Mhm.
sermon versus the old way. And
Mhm.
so they got rid of the old stuff, and you didn't like that. Is that
Well,
because you were
no.
more
That
okay? I'm sorry.
yeah. No, that's just my personality. And this, it was problematic for me. I didn't like it. But I also knew that this is not the stuff to leave a church over. And so this was not why I left, okay?
Oh no, I know that's not why you left,
But
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 you
I
had
did
strong feelings about it switching
I
over to
did.
contemporary.
Yeah, just
Tell me
because I
why.
mean, it spoke more to me, like the traditional stuff spoke more to me because I could sit there and be my conservative introvert self with a hymn book and read music because I was a music major and sit there and see the music and the words and participate and sing whatever part I wanted, the soprano, the alto, whatever part. Um, I just liked it. It spoke to me. It was a way that my personality engaged in
Mm.
worship in a comfortable way. And so when they went to more of the contemporary music with the PowerPoints and the drum set and the guitars and the
See, I
lights and
love that.
and I know and there's a
Oh,
lot of people who
I miss that.
absolutely loved it and so like I understood and I totally went along with it because I knew it was feeding a lot of people, right?
Mm.
But the thing that did bother me was that I felt that in that move and again I'm okay with somebody saying that this could just be my own perspective and my preferences and that's fine but I did feel like there was a loss of something substantial in the in in the gaining of something that was showy and sparkly to draw people in. I did see
That's fair.
I saw a drop in individual like to give a specific example where some there was an older group of women who would get together every summer and pray over what subject they should teach for the women's Bible study the next year. And it was a lot of effort and a lot of care and concern that I saw went into that. And they came up with the questions themselves. They, thoughtfully for that particular group of people. Um, and I felt like that was meaningful and substantive. And I saw them transition to simply doing like these boxed studies that are put together by some famous beautiful looking woman who is a Christian woman who writes fantastic wonderful stuff but it was prepackaged and boxed up, and you're watching videos, and it's nobody you really know in person. You don't really know what they're really going on in life. So yes, I had a lot of strong feelings like that because I did feel like something substantial was lost, and
Now, were
for
they
for
forced
something
to
showy.
switch? Were they forced to switch over to this box thing,
I don't
or
think so. I think
did
it
they feel like,
was.
oh, this is what people want, let's just do this?
I think that, and also there's always a struggle in church environments to get volunteers to be there to do like lead the small groups and
Yeah,
stuff. And when you buy the pre-packaged boxed material, that's all in there. Like
the
that's all you
work's
have to
done for
do.
you.
The work's
Yeah,
done for them. You just say, here you go, just show up and read what's here. And I think that's really just shitty. But like there's
that's fair.
nothing. But so but I get the struggle. I understand the struggle of trying to make it easy for people to participate. People are getting more busy in their lives, and again, you're always fighting this downward trend of church attendance. So they're trying to figure
Mm.
out what's gonna connect with people, what's gonna get them engaged, and so there's just a struggle to try to figure out what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, as much as I miss the music programs, which I did, and they would always elicit a lot of crying and intense emotion and just feel, because I love music and music really speaks to a lot of people. It took me a while to learn how to appreciate a quieter setting, a different setting where the organ, even, I mean, the organ's not quiet, but just listening to an organ and hymns that repeat themselves. It took me a while to appreciate that. Like, I still don't know most of the words to things, so a lot of times I just close my eyes and listen. And when we had Easter service, it was like one of our fullest, probably our fullest service since reopening in July. And when everybody started singing, I just closed my eyes and you really could feel a full room. But when obviously, like, the message is always banging. I mean, that's what I'm there for, is the message. And I just kind of tolerate the rest of it. But when I bring my friends there, they're like, how do you sit through this? Like, we love what the preacher has to say, but the rest is like,
Yeah.
it's just, it's hard to stay engaged.
Yeah.
And I just say, you know what? In the beginning, it was rough because I'm used to just like instantly walking in and feeling
You
and
feel that.
vibing. And the
Yeah.
first thing I would do when I got to church, especially on a Wednesday, um, for Bible study, was take my shoes off and stand and feel the rug in my feet. And we'd have our arms up and we'd just be praising and just closing our eyes and just really like euphoric moment. And I
Mhm.
can't do that here. I'm sitting in this hard bench and on a wooden floor, and which is beautiful, but it's a whole different vibe. So I just said, you know what? I've said to my friends, I have to be really what's the word? God, what's the word I want? I have to be really intentional about my
Uh-huh.
time there. So I've learned to appreciate it for what it is. It's not, I don't really tolerate it like I used to. I can I can see the value. And also, like I even said with the Holy Week, we were so used to having like a party.
Mhm.
I just remember one Good Friday, we baptized like 15 people, and it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you guys. Jesus was being ripped to shreds today.
I know.
So
Yeah.
to
Well,
to see that quiet reverence
mhm.
versus like baptism party on Good Friday, like, you know what I
Well,
mean? That
y-
that was meaningful. So
yeah.
I like a little of each. I'm not asking them to change their whole thing and get
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
a fog machine and lights, like, but like just maybe a few
Spice
more
it up a
hit
little, huh?
songs. Yeah, come on, like spice up your life.
Well, here,
So
so I have a few thoughts on the difference between the your old church experience with the
mhm.
more contemporary music and your new one. With a more traditional worship experience, but a more progressive, like even keeled theology
Oh
underneath
yeah.
it. Um, so, have you heard of the term trauma bonding before?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's
I know
so
what
so it's like you have this, you know, the
Mhm.
fact in like a in a dysfunctional or toxic relationship when you go from one high of everything's great, this is wonderful, I'm so in love, and they're treating you so wonderful, but over the top wonderful, and then
Love
to
bombing.
yeah, to this other part where then all of a sudden they're like saying you're terrible, you never do anything right, you're horrible. They go back and forth, and that creates a very strong bond. And I feel like that's what
Mhm.
happens in these conservative church, evangelical churches sometimes.
But
Whereas,
they
go ahead, what?
I was gonna say, but they have a very specific formula to elicit those emotions out of you. Like there's a very
Yeah.
specific and that's even taught. If you start with an upbeat song, get you like if we want to just do the cycle of a sermon,
Mm-hmm.
let's start with an upbeat song, get everybody's blood pumping, go to a
Mm-hmm.
very like slow, meaningful song, and then a song that will connect to the sermon. And then the sermon, which their theology is already like way off the chart, paired
Mm-hmm.
with the emotional roller coaster you go with the first three songs, then
Mm-hmm.
mushes you up for this message that may or may not be completely right for you. And then pair that with the ending, which is like a song, like a slow song to like bring it all back together. And then at the end, you go up to the altar and talk about all the things that you've done wrong or
Yeah, that's the thing.
and that's where
You
the
have to
bond.
repent.
Yeah, and then you have all these people like watchdogging you. So I know what you're saying. Like, yes, they
Yeah.
create they create a place to spill out your guts, and they're like, look at us cleaning it up.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is what we need you to do, and this is how you're going to feel better. Just follow everything we say.
Right. And it's controlling, and
Oh,
it's
oh, yes.
yes, controlling because you
But
can't just yeah.
it's not just the music. It's it's all of those little pieces that come together, and they all play a very integral and subtle part.
Mm,
That's why they want to know what you're doing all the time. That's why they check in. That's why, so
yeah.
it's not just the sermon and the music
Hmm.
that's the culprit. It's the whole thing
Right. Right.
that creates that
It's
bond.
it's a cycle, almost a cycle of abuse. You know, they
Well, it
say,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
honeymooning you with this wonderful. Look how much God loves you. You know, look how much He cares for you, and you feel so wonderful when you're connected. And then all of a sudden, here comes the sermon about how where have you failed this week? What have you done? Where do you need to repent? Where is there sin in your life? You know, and then so you've created the problem now. And then the only
Hmm.
way to find the solution to get back to that honeymoon stage that you loved so much is to be like, you are so right. I suck. I failed. You are so right. God is amazing. I am awful. And then you can go back to the honeymoon phase.
I mean, I never felt like
You never felt like that.
I never really felt like everyone was like telling me I was a piece of shit. But because I'm a person that's like always, always, always trying to better myself and work towards like I'm always working on myself. So I'm like, yes, this is a place that's like ready to get the work done. They're
Uh-huh.
here to like, I figured they were there like they're doing the hard shadow work. Like, let's look at where you're maybe shouldn't be doing things and what you could be doing. And I'm like, these people are teaching me to be a better person. And like
Mm-hmm.
I was appreciative, like,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't realize the subliminal tactics that they were using to get me to feel like that and then to get me to rely on them in that way. And I rely
Uh-huh.
on people a lot anyway, just because that's my personality. Like I need my village.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, with the personality, with how you liked the old church being more um, old fashioned, it really plays to different. It all depends on your perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is if
Mm-hmm.
we can see the damage or not, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. So that's what made me think of the difference between those two types of churches and how one is where sure the progressive traditional church might not be as exciting, but it's more stable, it's healthier. Um, you're free to be who you are.
So do you
You're
think
not
that
controlled.
you can't have fun in church, but also have it be all those healthy things?
Well, no, I think you can have fun in church. It's just a matter of how it's used, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're offsetting it and having it be this, bringing it up so high, and then having like a huge low, maybe that follows it, maybe that's not healthy. And a
Right.
lot of
Like,
the atonement theories really play into that low of lows.
that's true.
What did Jesus do for you? He died because you sinned. Kind of, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, do I want my pastor to walk in and be like, "Hey, party people, what's up?" You know, because that's literally how many services started at the old place. Hey guys,
Yeah.
what you doing? Like, can I hear some like, hey man, like let's wake up. Like, I don't need all that, but I
Yeah.
could use like, I could dig some Lauren Daigle songs up there or some Hillsong, even though I'm not even gonna touch Hillsong right now because
I
that's a
know.
whole problematic thing that I have to go. We have to watch that.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
the whole documentary. Not that it'll be news to us probably, but you know, it's all that fake, like, oh my gosh, Jesus made me so happy, like it's a promotional ad. Like, no, I just want some updated music,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, just a little updated music would be
Can I
good.
can I stop singing the songs from 10,000 years ago? Thanks.
I
Some of
say
them
keep
I
all those old ones. I'm good. I'm good with it.
listen. I didn't even say that. I said, can you just sprinkle a little? Like, give me a little salt in there.
I hear ya. I hear ya.
Oh,
I'd be okay.
man.
I'd be okay with that. Um, but another thing, and you can stop me if you want to go in a different direction,
No,
but
go ahead.
like another thing that really bothered me was the conformity. Did you, and maybe you had a different experience. So tell me a little
No.
bit about the way people looked and dressed at your church. Did you feel like, um,
Well,
in that way, did you feel like there was a conformity there or
n-
no? Was that just me?
uh, yes and no. So like, it's funny because in that episode, Sierra says to Jerry, she goes, "Wait, was this the Holy Jeans Church that made you feel like this?"
Holy
Because
jeans. Yeah.
yeah, because and as soon as she said that, I knew what she meant. Like, because
Jeans
they
and
were
tall
like,
boots. The holy jeans and tall boots.
yeah, Holy Jeans,
Uh-huh.
tall boots, like basically you can wear your street clothes. You don't have to get dressed up. Like, hey,
Yeah.
we're relaxed, we're chill. And that whole vibe of like, let your guard down. We're just hanging out. Show up in sweatpants. Wear a baseball cap through service. Like, it made it seem like it's nice and chill. And I remember
Mhm.
like summer, I had started in the winter with them, and summer came, and I had asked the pastor's wife. I was like, am I allowed to wear a sleeveless tank top? Like, am I allowed to wear a tank, not like spaghetti straps? And she's like, yeah. Like, she looked at me like I was nuts. I'm like, I'm allowed to show my shoulders. She goes, well, we're not Catholic. And I was like, okay, well, it's the house of God, and I'm just trying to be, and because she would wear like, like the thick strap
Yeah.
tanks up there because she was always hot. But I remember like coming to church one day, and in the summer I like to wear dresses, and at that time I was a warehouse worker, so all week I was like dressed like a sweaty, stinky, messy, gross man,
Mhm.
essentially. So on Sunday, like, I wanted to dress up and like be pretty and foofy and just, and I remember coming in one day and somebody saying, what do you think this is, a ball? And I was like, no,
Wow.
but I'm like, I just wanted to like look nice for
Yeah.
church. And it was almost like I was too fancy. Like, I was going to give the image that it was like I was too uptight.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I just remember that comment, and I was like, no, I'm just wearing. It happened to be like a maxi dress, but it was
Uh-huh.
black. And I was like,
Oh,
no, I'm just wearing a comfortable dress and I want to look nice. Like,
yeah.
and
I
I
got
had
a
my
comment for wearing a black maxi dress too. Like it was like long sleeved, or not long sleeved. It was, but I was wearing like a sweater over it, and like it went down to the floor. The dress did, and
yeah,
somebody told
mine.
me I looked like a nun. I was like, oh, thanks. That made me
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
good. Thanks.
I
Nothing
felt the need
against
to,
nuns. I love nuns.
yeah, we love a nun. We love a good nun. But yeah, I was like, I personally didn't feel right about wearing like spaghetti straps. So like that maxi dress, it was a spaghetti strap. So I'd wear a black tank top underneath so that it would just widen a little bit. And that's
Hmm.
just me. Or I had a nice dress and they went to the floor that was like bright orange. And I would always wear like a, what are they, cowl? It's like a half, like it stops here.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's basically just shoulders, like a little
Uh-huh.
sweat. It's like a cardigan with just shoulders. Um, and people would just, oh, you look so nice. But we didn't really, conformity really wasn't in the outfit. It was really like quietly, it had to be your ideas had to be conformed.
Yeah,
And
had
I was
to for
even
sure.
told that, you I said, if you're waiting for me to conform, like I won't. And they're like, no, no, that's not what we're waiting for. I'm like, because it really feels like you are.
Uh,
And eventually I was right about pretty much everything. So
well, it's nice to know that your senses, your fifth sense or sixth sense or whatever
my
is
sixth
correct
sense,
and working
my
well.
intuition. Well, so was yours because
Mm-hmm.
you did it too. I
Mm-hmm.
know you say a lot like, oh, Carolyn, you knew this and you did this. It's like, yeah, but you also did it. Just because you were there longer doesn't mean, first of all, you were heavily raised in this. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I had religion sprinkled into my life. I chose to go when I felt like going. I wasn't forced to go every Sunday. I didn't have to go to every Sunday school. I got to pick and choose. So my tether wasn't as short and strong as
Mm-hmm.
yours was. Like I had more, and I also came from a household with my parent who let me make those decisions. She let me make all my decisions. Honestly, I wasn't really like I wouldn't get in trouble for getting bad grades, or I was never really grounded. Like if you want to fail, that's on you. If you want
Mm-hmm.
religion, that's on you. Which I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I feel like you give yourself a really hard time, but you also had to overcome a much larger mountain than I did. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and even as an adult, you were in that church for like what, 15 years. And like the last place that you were at, like the one that you ultimately realized like this wasn't working for you, you
Yeah.
know, that was that's a
That's
lot. I was
hard.
there for 4, you
Yeah.
know? So cut yourself a break.
Yeah. 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 Um, yeah. It is hard though, because just to not second guess yourself too. Or and again, like I was saying earlier about the whole not worrying about what others are thinking about your decisions either. Just being able to let that
Yeah, that takes
go.
time.
Yeah.
Well, you
So,
even said to me in the last, I think, episode is that it takes years to heal from all this. And you might have something pop up even years from now that you're like, wow, I thought I was over that, or I thought this was over, but
mhm.
and it's okay. It's there.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to mention was COVID, because when I look at like attendance now, or the last months that I've been in this church, 8 months, 9 months, and I'm like, why aren't people coming back? Oh,
You're gone again. There you
sorry. Even though this is plugged in, I have 4%.
Oh my
It,
gosh.
it might just really just die on us. Um, COVID. So there's a lot of people who I think they spent some time. Did we talk about this on the air before?
I don't think so. I don't
COVID?
think so. Not about COVID. I don't think.
Yeah, like when we had to leave church, like right away, it was like floundering and like, oh my gosh, like what am I gonna do without my church? How am I gonna like,
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time like I would be recharged every Wednesday, Sunday, and then it was gone. And I think a lot of people, anybody that was introspective enough to look at the break during COVID and go, do I really need to be going to church? Am I just checking a box? Is this, I think a lot of people are looking at their time now, or I would hope that for those people that learned something from this pandemic or like took a deep dive into their life, would see like, okay, I think a lot of people reevaluated their relationship with God. Because that's when I left. I know you did it before this, but when I looked at missing them and being away from them and surviving, I mean, I was a mess though. For months I was a mess. And then but then coming back, and it just wasn't the same. And nobody could hide behind the initial, the comfortable agenda that was there before. Like when people are like, oh, how did you not know they were this way before? It's like, well, it was easier to hide. We were all living our normal lives. And then the pandemic hits and we're all in crisis all at the same time.
Yeah.
So it makes nefarious things harder to conceal. At this, I think they scrambled too, the evangelicals, because they're like, and I even heard them say in some capacity, like, we don't have time to mess around now. Like this is end times. Like we need to stand for what we need to stand for. And that's when the whole like abortion, gay rights, and refugee stuff, like that stuff, it wasn't just subtle slipping it in anymore. It was like, oh, game time.
Yeah.
Like, and so it was not up for debate anymore. It wasn't up. They didn't have, they feel, and to this day they feel they don't have that timeline to like slowly put it in you anymore. So for me, that's what drove me out.
But I think did they talk end times, or was it just the urgency they did?
Both. I asked pastor, because I was very tight with her, and I was like, do you think this is end times? And she goes, honestly, I do. Yes, I do. And if you read Revelations, it does say like natural disasters and fighting with your neighbors, like civil wars between brethren, and the divide between, I mean, on the surface, that's kind of what it looks like. I don't know.
I know. I have a lot to say about end times. I feel like we could do a whole episode, because
we should save end times for its own episode. Is this the end times?
So much there, because my whole life grew up around the surety that was coming, and preparations for that. And when you live with that mindset, I mean, I was still living with that mindset into my 30s, and storing extra food in my closets, and looking at what was coming down, what big end of the world, how was it going to happen, and believing it was. You felt like it was. So yeah, that could be that's a lot to unpack though.
Yeah. But as far as COVID goes, there's a lot of people I know that decided when they left, they just never returned. Yeah. I think maybe time away. It's kind of like if you have time away from your abuser, then you have those moments to think for yourself, where someone's not there to like see what you're doing at all times and tell you, oh, this is right, this is wrong. I think it was the first time for a lot of people who were not under somebody's control. The church lost a little control there. And I think that freaked them out. And that's why people were like, let's go to church, even if the government says we can't. Like, we have to fight this. If I can go to Walmart, I can go to service. That was a big one.
And where in the Bible does it say that you have to attend church every Sunday in order to? Well, I don't know.
I think it was more like, you're not letting us worship our God. But I think for leadership wise, it was, we don't have our thumb on everybody right now. We can't. I mean, my pastor was in charge of probably 200 people. And he knew what we were all doing all the time, really. Not in a nefarious way, but just like, we were his flock, and and I was reading scriptures about pastors the other day, and it was like, you are some of them, I mean, it depends on how you take the scripture, but you are responsible for these people. Make sure that they're doing the right thing. And they took that very, very literally, where like, okay, if they're not doing the right thing, I have to answer to that up in heaven.
Yeah.
So they try to do everything they can to make you do the right thing, which is, again, too much responsibility for one person. But
But
I
yeah,
think
no,
people
that's
tasted
interesting.
freedom.
Yeah. So you think like, did you see numbers go down in the evangelical church you
Yes,
attended
there was a lot.
dramatically?
Yes, and I
Yeah.
was appalled. Not like mad at them, but I was like, oh my gosh, like one of them was one of my close friends. Like, she's just like, nobody checked on us. I'm like, they said they did. That how could this be? And she's like, they didn't ask us how we were. They didn't, whatever. And I was like, I was like, what? Just come back. Like, just come back. And she was like, no, like we feel the fakeness. We're not coming back. And then the other people didn't come back because they were autoimmune, or had cancer in the past, and they didn't trust their brothers and sisters to protect them, and they wouldn't have been protected. People weren't wearing masks. They were not vaccinated. They were holding groups. They were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. And so a lot of our older crowd didn't come back, and I just thought, oh, it's because they're afraid. But I did find more people that were just like, you know what? I realized this just wasn't, I felt better away.
Yeah,
You shouldn't feel
interesting.
better away. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
how could I argue with that? And so when I started going to this new church, I brought her to this new church a couple times with me. And she likes, like, I don't force her to come, but I'll be like, hey, you want to come? And even when I ask people to come to my church now, still, I'm like, there's no pressure. Like, I still feel like I'm not supposed to ask them to come. Like, it should be their decision. But also, I want to share the time with them. I don't know. It's all still intermingled. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember being like, I can't believe these people haven't come back. And I was one of those people. I was like, oh, they're out there going to the zoo, and they're going on trips, but they can't come to service because,
Yeah.
oh, they don't feel safe. Like, I was
Yeah.
right there saying it with them, even though I was still on the cusp, because
Yeah.
they were my friends and I missed them. I was like, why aren't
Yeah.
you coming to church? How come you can go do that, but you can't come here with me? Like, this
Right.
is for God. God has to be in your life. Like,
Yeah.
this. And they're like, girl, no, sorry. And then,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Huh. I'm
The
yeah.
thing with the church that I'm at now is I don't know who was there before. I
Yeah.
just know how full it is, or how empty it has been. But we
Hmm.
also do a lot of people that Zoom in. What I like about this is that there's a big screen and you can see everybody that's on Zoom. So
I
it
like
feels a
how they
little
do
bit,
that. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit more personal.
Hmm.
But yeah, we're filling up now, and it feels more like like a congregation.
Yeah.
But
Good.
I don't know why the other people left. I, I
Yeah.
know
I don't
some of
know.
it was,
I know that some of it was like the majority. Well, a lot of the folks that didn't come back were families with
yeah,
kids.
yeah. I'm
And
just figuring
that's
that
a
out.
that's a curious thing to consider. I mean, because I was working at a church as doing the Christian ed during COVID, and it was interesting that we had the Zoom stuff that we held every week. We had Zoom classes, and
Mhm.
people came to that, and we had great attendance for it, consistent attendance. But then when they came back in person, the numbers just
It dropped.
dropped, and nobody.
I know for our church, we were not offering insert in person until literally last week, and then they canceled it, and they canceled this week too, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because not a few families had COVID, or the staff wasn't ready to come back. And I know some families were kind of frustrated with that, but I've talked to other families within this new church too that are like, we want to get into the service, and we know people that actually, one of my friends, I don't know if I told you this, she had looked into the church you used to go to, and I was like, no, 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 no. And she
Mm-hmm.
goes, oh, a lot of my friends go there. I'm like, yeah, it's really fun on the outside, but if you have a daughter that's questioning her sexuality and she's like, I do, she goes, I read the doctrine. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I can't go here. I was
Yeah,
like, no.
it's like a wonderful place if you know what it is, that if you want to hold to
Mhm.
that way of looking at it, go. It's a great place, great people. But if you are looking at things differently, then you just need to be aware of what you're stepping
But
into. So,
it's even hard to say that, because I say the same thing. I'm like, if that's your bag, though, they're great. But like at the same time, they're not great. They're not great. I mean, they're not terrible people. They're not trying to be malicious, but they're not safe people, because I didn't even leave my church because of being gay. I left over political differences, over biblical differences. Like, I believe a woman should have the right to have an abortion. I believe children shouldn't be put in cages. I for sure thought the gay thing was going to get me kicked out,
mhm.
but it was just because they were like, no, 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 like, we'll love you. Like, we wouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. But it came down to it. It's like, you know what? If you're going to fight with me on all this other stuff, are you going to fight with me if I actually do get a girlfriend? And they were like, oh, actually, yeah, we are. So is that good people? Do I want to send my people that I love or care about to them? Probably not.
Yeah. All right, you got a good point.
I know it's hard because we love them. We
Yeah, it
loved
is
them.
hard. Yeah, and because also I was I was one of them for so long, and I know that they're not wanting harm for anybody, right?
Right. And you
And
were not a bad person.
that's really hard that's hard.
You were not a bad person when you were there. And when I look at them, I don't go, well, they're bad people. They're
Mhm.
just not healthy people.
Yeah.
They're not malicious. You were not malicious. You wanted to do what was right. And
Mhm.
even in your own way, you were starting to do that, like with the Sunday school stuff.
Mhm.
But you weren't healthy. And now you feel freer and you feel more healthy. And you
Mhm.
feel like, you have more options and you can speak to people in a different way that is more encompassing. So
Mhm.
I'm not saying don't send them because, like, oh God, they were like you, faith sucks.
Oh no, yeah. No, no, no.
Yeah,
No, but it is hard because
you know
I
what I
I
mean.
feel a compassion for them, like
Same.
knowing that they don't mean ill, but but no, but no, you've got a good point for sure. Yeah.
I still I cried for them. I cried for them on Monday, Thursday. I cried for them and I prayed for them, not Jesus. I prayed for them because I thought, you're so lost that you can't even see the damage that you're doing to yourself and your loved ones. And I know that's how they look at us, but
Yeah.
let them look at us like that. I'm crying because I'm like, you'd kill your own savior and you don't even realize you'd kill your own savior. So you need the prayers. Jesus doesn't need the prayers. He's all right. He's living his best life. But you're not. You're living in a cage and calling it freedom. So
Mhm.
it's like when they it's like when they chain up baby elephants when they're young in the circus. And then as they get older, all you need to do is put like a little rope around them and they don't realize that they could break the rope.
Mhm.
It's that.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's that.
I know. Oh, I feel that. I feel that, and that's why the that book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, the first chapter really hit me
Mm,
too.
yep.
Um, I don't know.
It's a lot, Faith. And I know
Yeah.
this wasn't as spicy as transgender twins, but
I
but
think I have more to say about this stuff than the transgender
well, yeah.
twin.
Well, I just gotta like to throw some stuff in
I like
there.
it. I like it.
Um, I thought about reading religious trauma stories, but I don't know if we're there yet. It's triggering, and we have our own we have our little sort of easy ones that maybe people can relate to. And I think people do relate to what we're saying. So
Yeah.
that's what matters. And
Yep.
now look at you. I mean, COVID, I mean, we're what into like, are we into year 3? Where are we?
I have no
We're-
idea.
We're years into COVID.
Years.
You're at no church. I'm at a new church trying to be in charge.
Yeah.
No, I've kind of chilled out with that. I've slowed down with like my crazy let me be in every single committee
Well, that's good.
mindset.
Everything in moderation, right?
Yeah, I'm not good at that, but I'm trying. I'm happy. I'm happy to be doing the things that I do feel like I'm making a difference, and and being part of what they're doing to make a difference. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what matters. I'm not just checking a box, and I am excited that I get to speak in June for Pride Month.
Yeah, very
Um,
cool.
yeah,
You're
psyched
gonna
for
get
that.
up and share your story in
I
church?
sure am.
Cool. Maybe I'll have to go.
Ooh, would love that.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want to like kill your no church streak.
No. It's just a matter of not holding on to it anymore. So I can
Yeah.
come and go.
Your terms. Your
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good.
Right.
I think we covered what we could cover today
I think
on
so.
this rainy, cozy clothing day.
Yep. And I'm ready to get up. My bum is starting to be sore from sitting.
Oh, I know, and I'm sweating. I have the heat on too high. So I don't know what we're gonna talk about next time, but maybe people could give us some ideas. I always seem to come across something, so
Yeah. I'm open.
we'll just see what happens.
Sounds
Until
good.
next time,
We'll go with the flow.
goodbye. Cut.